Okay, so commissioning. We started with the first step. If you go back right in the beginning, you'll remember that we said it all starts with idea generation, right? So you have to come up with an idea. This is exactly what you guys are doing for your proposal as well. You have to think of an idea, you have to generate this idea, come up with a concept, and the idea that I also said, or the idea with the proposal, is that you will try and find something that hasn't been done before. So it should be something that's original, because obviously if you just go and do exactly the same thing, it means that you are producing something that is already fulfilling a need in the market, whereas you have to go and find that gap, something that hasn't been done before, that fulfills a need in your target audience in a new way, or that hasn't been done before. Next, you had to go and think. If you think about step 2, does it fit the editorial policy? Now we don't. Does it fit the publishing house's editorial policy, which is the philosophy, the house style, and the list. Right? Does it fit with the list? So you came up with this great idea about rock legends over the years, for example. Very, basic idea, or famous UK rock legends, over the years. And now you have to know, okay, so I am actually a schoolbook and textbook publisher. Will this fit in with my publishing house? Obviously not, unless it is a book that is geared towards music studies, that has a very specific program or syllabus, that's like a private school that you can work it into. But then that would obviously determine the kind of look and feel of the book. Then it won't be a coffee table book that has great imagery and photographs and short pieces of information. Then if it's more academic or more educational, the book would obviously look like that as well, where you have more descriptive information, essays on these rock legends, talk about their music histories and their lives, etc., etc. So it's very important that you need to fit it into the list. And then we get to step 3, which is your market research, which is very important. So now you've already come up with an idea. You've already looked whether it fit into the publishing house. So that's section A and section B that you're doing for your publishing house. With market research, basically, look for a market for your book. Right, so that's why it's so important that you actually know what your concept or idea entails. Sometimes I can just gauge from reading your work that I'll see, okay, so your idea wasn't that well formulated or thought out, because I can see that you don't really know who your market is. So even when you just think about a title and a concept and idea, you have to already think about the market, because you're already thinking, okay, I'm creating this for this person. The two go together. You also look at market research, you look at what your competitors are doing, because how will you know if you are not doing a book that is already in the market, that is already doing well and selling and exists in the market? You have to go and do the legwork. You have to go into the market and go see. Now, unfortunately, you cannot go to bookstores, although I think they're opened again. But online, you can search for similar titles to yours. You have to go see what other things, like today, you're looking at different kinds of competitors. It's not just books anymore. If I are looking at dystopian and apocalyptic kind of reads, I will also look at what kind of series are currently showing, what books are tied to series, what other activities and things are happening that relates to this whole or broader theme. With competitors, and we'll get into that in more detail, but with competitors as well, you can see what are the prices for their books, what are the page extents. That's why I told you guys as well, when you started with your idea, coming up with an idea, to some of you guys, I already said, go and look what's happening in the market. See if there are not any other competing books. Why did I tell you this? I told you this specifically so that you can already have an idea, not just about the competitors as such in terms of content, but see how many pages are these books. Because remember, people have a certain expectation. Readers have a certain expectation. They know that a fiction book is going to be more or less so many pages. They know that the format is going to be paperback. Coffee table books, yes, they know it's going to be something completely different. So you have to be able to meet their expectations, not just in terms of content for the book that you're creating, but as well as specifications, the size, hardcover, softcover, page extent, etc. All right, so now we all say, okay, but how on earth are we going to determine a market based on this? So I think it's very important that with market research, yes, you look for the market for your book and you define it. You are looking at what the competitors are doing, but start with what you've got. Now, I know you guys are not working at the publishing houses that you selected for your study or your proposal, so you won't be able to say, yes, I can now refer to the historical data. But in your minds, think that you are actually working for a publishing house. So create this little simulate the scenario for yourself to say, okay, if I were a commissioning editor and I was working for this specific publishing house, where would my starting point be? Right. Now, whenever you start with a new idea, go check out the sales data or the historical sales data of previous books published that are similar to the one that you are thinking of commissioning or that you came up with. All right. Because that will give you a great indication of how many of these books sold before, how big was the, the print run. That would really help you. And this is what publishing houses do. A lot of these most of these publishing houses do not have the time to actually go and do extensive market research. So the first thing they'll do is they go to previous sales records and see what books were similar and how many did they sell and how did it go. They could see within a year we sold 4,000 copies, or they could say, wow, this was really good. Let's say a book sells 500 copies per month. I can work it out that way. All right. It's also a continuing process, and it involves all facets of publishing. So it's not to say once you've done idea generation, you stop there and then you just move on to the next one. You'll sometimes go back to your initial idea and go tweak it a little bit, especially after you have conducted your market research. Right. So now you have to ask yourself, how do you get your idea from a manuscript to your users? As I said, this is basically what publishing is all about. So if we have to go to the theoretical academic definition, market research is systematic collection and analysis of data about a particular target market. It incorporates data collection, which can be primary or secondary. So in this sentence, I've underlined the most important ideas here. It's a collection and analysis. So it's one thing to collect all the data, but now you sit with a report and now you're like, now what do I do? You have to analyze this data. You can see what are good sales, what are poor sales, exactly what you've done with your editorial prac. It's also about a particular target market, and it can be primary and secondary. We're going to get into more detail about that, but you have primary data and secondary data. Now, what is the purpose of market research? It's to better understand the subject and to provide market intelligence to encourage success, enhance competitiveness, and maximize profits. Basically, if you summarize all of those very big words, it says it enables you to make better business decisions. Because once you have the data and you know the stats and you know this is more or less how many copies this book will sell for, and this is the price, etc., then you can make a business decision and say, based on the information I have gathered, collected, this will mean that I'll print 500 copies. I'll do a reprint maybe of 250 if important. I'll price it at this price, and then we'll see how it goes. Right. It also enhances competitiveness, because the more you know about the market, the better product you can create and the better you can compete with your competitors, because you know your market better. Right. And that's what we call market intelligence. You actually have more information about your market, and it can help you to be a better competitor and have business savvy, if you want to call it that. Okay, this is just a little joke. I see good books. I don't know if you guys know the movie Sixth Sense. But a lot of people refer to commissioning as a gut feel. They say it's just that instinct that you've got that this is going to be a good thing. Now, I should say on that point, yes, it's true. I think the more you do it and the longer you've been in business, the better you are able to do this, engage, okay, this or risk to see whether I'm going to publish this book or not, because all books have risks involved. But I think initially, sometimes you just know, and you cannot explain it to anyone and say, I just know this is going to be a good book. All right. So, as we said, To support the proposal and to support your idea, I think market research that is definitely something that it helps with, is it support your proposal. So if you now have this great idea, you know it fits into the market, into the publishing houses list and brand and vision and mission and policy, etc., then obviously this will help you. If you have the market research to back it up, it will prove that your idea is actually viable. Right, because now you can prove that it fits into the publishing list of the company, it fits into the budget and profit margins, because we're going to do costing as well. Alicia says we're going to help you with that. You have a competitive selling price, because now you already know what is the market asking for the same type of book. If I'm also doing a hardcover children's book, what are they asking for their books, and what am I going to ask for my book? Is that where my competitive unique selling proposition is going to lie? And you have to be, that's very important, because we live in South Africa and because people are so price sensitive, especially when it comes to luxury goods, all right? Not just academic and educational, but especially to luxury goods like leisure, reading, trade fiction. People rarely want to spend 250 to 340 Rand for a soft cover novel, as opposed to go and buy, a good dinner for their family, or getting supplies for the household, or filling up with petrol, or buying data. So you have to know that you really have to speak to that audience's wants and needs in order for them to say, this is actually a good price. And customers, never underestimate your customers, because your customers know, they do price checks. They go online, they look for better deals, they see where they can get the same thing but at a cheaper price. So if they're going to see, oh man, you are completely outpriced, you are too high, in relation to other booksellers or other book publishers, they rather go for the cheaper option. Because at the end of the day, if I want a new Stephen King book and it's exactly the same book, it's not secondhand, it's a new book, a new release, and I go to Bargain Books and I go to Exclusive Books, I'll go and buy it at Bargain Books because it's cheap and exactly the same content. Some people would rather go to Exclusive Books more for the atmosphere, more for the status that is attached to it, etc. But you have to think about the general average consumer in South Africa, and we are highly price sensitive, especially in these difficult economic climate and times. Right, so people are definitely going to weigh it up. But on the other hand, you also have to remember that you as a publishing house still have to make ends meet. You still have to cover your production costs and your printing costs and your author royalties, and still pay your people, your overheads. So you can't also just sell this book at the lowest price possible and make no profit. So it's really a balancing act on how you do that.